Welcome to our talk today. And today we're thinking about the excuse that people give for not becoming a Christian, not coming to Jesus. I tried it before. They tried it before and it didn't work, or it didn't last. Now, this is something is a very real thing, and certainly in the area where I live in the Huckle, it is very real. I remember many years ago when I was assistant in Wellington Street, being involved in an outreach and going around different people's homes. And it was amazing the number of people who could have given you a time when they came to faith in Christ, and it lasted for a while, but then it faded away and they were nowhere near a church or nowhere spiritually today. Now, what do we say in responses? How do we understand those who come to Christ but it doesn't last? Well, I think that probably the best place to start is the parable of the sower. And in that parable there are four types of ground. There's the wayside, with those who hear the word but immediately snatched away and they don't come to make any profession. There's the good ground, those who make a profession and it lasts and they bear much fruit. But in between there's the stony ground, those who make a profession, the seed springs up very quickly, but it doesn't last because there's no root. And there's a thorny ground, those who again make a profession, but it doesn't last because the cares of the world choke them. Now, what are we to make of those on the stony and the thorny ground? Well, the truth is, that seed represents those who have never genuinely become Christians. There are people who have made a profession, they appear to start out on the Christian life, but it doesn't last because it wasn't real. That's the crucial thing. Professing to be a Christian is not the same as genuinely being a Christian. And it's possible for people to profess to be a Christian, to say a prayer, to read their Bible, to pray, have a prayer life, and to be involved in church life, but not be born again. You see, what makes a true Christian is not that they have done certain things, like saying a prayer to be saved. What makes a true Christian is that they have been born again by the Spirit of God. And so the reason why some people indeed start out, but it doesn't last, because it wasn't real in the first place. Jesus said that none would pluck his people from his hand, and his Father was greater, and none would pluck them from his hand. And so once someone is genuinely saved, they'll never be lost, they'll never fall away. Yes, we have our slips, we have our slides. That does happen. We can backslide temporarily. But someone who genuinely is saved will be kept. Paul spoke to the Philippians about how he is confident that the God who began that work in it would bring it to completion. And so the God who indeed brings us to Christ when it's genuine, it will not be lost. But the reason why some people appear to start out and then fall away is because it wasn't real. Now, why is it that some people indeed it doesn't last? Why is it that it's not real? What are some of maybe the common traits in this? Well, let me say a few things. I think sometimes it's just been something that has been purely emotional. They've maybe been at a meeting, they've been moved in their hearts by what has been said. There's maybe a lot of great music and there's an emotional appeal, and their emotion just causes them to make a response, but it's not genuine, it's not truly from the heart. And they've been moved by emotions. Another problem sometimes is that people make a profession, but it's not real because there never really was full conviction of their sin. I know of a man, and he professed to be a Christian, and he started living the Christian life, and it didn't last. And then, some time later, he came under a tremendous sense of conviction of his sin, and he came to Christ genuinely this time. And he would say, the first time there wasn't a conviction. There wasn't a real deep work of me being aware of my sin. There was the second time when it was real. And that's the time in which he came and it lasted. So, If you're someone here today and you've gone through that experience, you've gone to a point to profess faith before, but it hasn't. The problem was it was all of man. It was what you did. But God didn't do that deep work of grace, of making you born again in your heart. Because when you're born again, you become a new creation. And you can't be uncreated now in the image of Christ. You can't be unborn again. The problem was you never were genuinely born again. What you need is not just a profession, not just saying a prayer. You need this deep work of grace within your heart. So, look back to what has happened to you. Another situation could be that some have started out and maybe they had a bad experience of church, and that is something that's made them fall away. And maybe there's some people and they're in a backslidden state. Maybe you started out and something happened in church. You were hurt or you were distracted. You've maybe fallen away. It's time to go back to the Lord. It's time to find a church where people will just faithfully teach the Bible and they'll seek to disciple you. You need a place that indeed where you can grow in Christ. So, are you someone who started out but it wasn't genuine? You need that deep work of grace. Are you someone who has backslidden? It's time to return to the Lord. It's time to come back to Him. Amen.